and we are now officially recording. So welcome everybody to our third virtual second Saturday's poetry reading hosted by All Souls Church in Stony Brook. Again, I've already mentioned that if you want to read, put your name in chat. Please keep your microphone muted. This is the third time that we've done this, and each time we do it, we learn something new. So we do believe that feedback is a gift. So there is my email, really simple to remember, Daniel B. for boy Kerr at verizon.net. Any feedback that you might have in terms of how this program could be improved going forward, please just do send me an email. So we made a little tweak here. So we said the first two, we said we'd go from 11 to 12, and then we would flex if necessary if we had a lot of people who wanted to read. Today, since we have two featured poets, we're actually going to expand. We're going to say we're going to go from 11 to 12:10 because we've actually got two featured poets. So we've expanded the amount of time available to them by an extra 10 minutes. So again, enter your names in the open chat. This is a typo. See, now here's feedback. I made error. So it'll be an encore by Terri and by Matt as well. I mentioned that these programs are hosted by All Souls, and I usually at this point I have a little hat on, and the hat I usually have is for the Souls for All Souls race, which I'll talk about in a second. But this is one of the many things that we're proud to host in terms of our role in the community. We now have a relationship with almost 700 people in the Three Village community, and that relationship comes as a result of the fact that the church is open for reflection every single day. And we've kept our church open actually throughout the pandemic. And it's really interesting. There's a guest book in the back of the church, and people can sign and leave little messages if they like. And the messages that they have left, particularly during the pandemic, have been quite moving in terms of how important it is for them to find a place so that they can find peace and reflection and so forth. So the doors are open every day. We do collect food for the hungry. So if ever you pass by the church, please know when the doors are open, there's a basket there if you want to contribute food to help feed the hungry. There are hungry in this area. They tend to be invisible, but they're there. And once a week, I take that food to one of the local food pantries. During normal times, these poetry readings are held in the church. But what we've noticed now that we've gone virtual, we've actually doubled the attendance in these things. So going forward, when we get back to normal times, it'll be an interesting issue of whether we go back to meeting in the church or we keep the meeting virtual. In normal times, we also do concerts. In normal times, we do Gregorian chant. And in normal times, we also do shamanic drumming as well. So come September, we're going to resume the drumming and we're going to resume the Gregorian chant. The concerts will probably come back a little bit later on. Just one thing I'd like to pause on here and kind of conclude with our role in the community. Once a year, we celebrate the role of the church in the community, and we also is one big fundraiser that we have, and that is the Souls for All Souls 5K run and 2K walk. And all proceeds from this event go to make the historical church handicapped accessible. You'll notice there at the bottom, there's quite a steep hill. And we know that some of our poets, Gladys Henderson, for instance, she used to host these things when she was Poet Laureate, and she had to stop hosting it because she couldn't make it up the hill. So all proceeds from the Souls for All Souls 5K run and 2K walk will go towards making the historical church handicapped accessible. And they'll notice each year, it started with Sharon Doyle, and then last year Sharon was able to get Barbara to join as well. So we actually have a group of poets, and the poets actually, they don't run, but they do the walk as well. So please mark your calendars if you're interested in joining the walk on September 27th. Just reach out to me, and you'll see signs around town in terms of how to register and so forth. Gladys Henderson this year is not going to walk, but she's going to actually be one of the people along the way, one of the route people. So we have people along the way to make sure that the people running or walking don't get lost. So if you do come, maybe Sharon will be, maybe Gladys will be there reading her poetry. So with that little bit of backgrounds, again, it's a pleasure to host you again. And I'm going to turn it over now to Barbara. And I'll just get Barbara, turn her mic on. And Barbara, over to you for some introducing today's poets.
Okay, just waiting for you to take that screen off. There we go. Okay, let me get settled here. There, I can see all of you. Excellent. Okay, so you've got your welcomes. Welcome. And I'm so happy that we're going to have Terri and Matt reading for us. Before we start, I always read one poem from a chapbook. And this particular time, it's a very special chapbook to me because it's the first chapbook I ever bought. And it was handmade by a friend of the person who wrote these poems. I got to know this person when we worked in a factory. They didn't call it a factory, but it was a factory. And I didn't know her well. I only knew her as a tough talking motorcycle riding woman. And then she was killed when she was riding her motorcycle. And her friend put together her poems. And I bought the chapbook. And I found it very moving. And I want to read it because I don't want her forgotten. I don't want her poems forgotten. So many people write and no one ever gets to hear what they've written. Baking bread with grandmother. You add up the years from birth to death. And even if you die old, it's just a handful of change. And with it, you buy a cold stone that sits and casts shadow while your mouth fills with dirt. How can I lose you? How can I give you up? How can I embrace a stone? One loaf of bread from your spotted hands is more a monument than all the granite in a quarry. I would put the loaf on my own pillow and smelling it have you and holding it hold you and eating it taste our laughter once again. A stone will not smell of starch and washing or stir old tunes into the soup. And all the things you hadn't a chance to tell me will sit on its gray silent tongue forever. If only I could brush your hair once again. Even here, my hands swimming through your yellowed hair would soothe you as always, and you would begin to rock to and fro and hum something ancient. Then you would smile and turn, and the death would fall from your face and powder your apron like flour. And you would pat my hand and say as always, oh, you will send me to heaven this way. But if you must be dead, better to burn you and sprinkle your ashes like breadcrumbs than bury you and make you feast for mold. If only I could crumble your bones and sift them with yeast and bake them into bread loaves and place one on my pillow and one as your headstone. You would rise from the grave on the aromas of baking. And that is Nanette Bouchard, 1948 to 1996. Now it is my deep pleasure, just hold on a second here. Yeah. It's my deep pleasure to introduce both Terri and Matt. I'm going to read both of their bios because often Terri and Matt will read in tandem, and this way we have that. And Terri Muuss is a social worker, director, performer, speaker, and author whose poetry has received 3 Pushcart and 2 Best of the Net nominations. Her first book, Overexposed, was released in 2013. And in 2016, Terri co-edited an anthology of New York women poets entitled Grabbing the Apple. Her second book, Godspine, was released earlier this year by 3 Taos Press. Matt Pasca is a poet, teacher, and traveler who believes in art's ability to foster discovery, empathy, and justice. He has authored 2 poetry collections, A Thousand Doors, 2011 Pushcart nominee, and Raven Wire, 2017 Eric Hoffer Book Award finalist, and served as assistant poetry editor of Two Bridges Review. Pasca is currently at work on his 3rd poetry collection, tentatively titled Trader. Please welcome Terri and Matt.
Hello. Thank you, Barbara. I just love you. You're one of the most luminous and lovely human beings I know. So to be introduced by you is an honor. Thank you for all you do for the poetry community. Thank you for all you do for this poetry event. And I'm honored to be able to read with this guy, one of my favorite humans on the earth. So I'm going to start with a poem from the book Overexposed. And I'm going to read one from this, and the rest is going to be from God's Spine. Matt and I are going to go back and forth like we like to do. I'm going to start with hard stuff. I'm going to end with more maybe beautiful and redemptive things later. So this is called Wild Violets. My father's hand tight around a fistful of pennies. They shine like mirrors as he counts them out on the edge of my Holly Hobbie bedspread at midnight. 1, 2, 3, 4. I am paralyzed watching him. I am waiting. I want those pennies, but what must I do to have them? They are painfully new, reflectively shiny. They dazzle me. I know how cold they will be until warmed in the tiny palm of my hand. They are such a precious thing. I want to put the pennies in my mouth. In the sides of my mouth, those copper pennies will taste like blood. He gathers me unto his lap and strokes my knee. In my right hand is a folded picture of one of my father's hunting and fishing magazines. I like to look at the pictures of the fish, their glassy eyes tinged with blood, their clipped fins. I stare for hours at the huge fingers which push themselves under the fish's vermilion gills as they are held aloft into the white air. Their gills are red, so bright, held by men with yellow crooked teeth and dark smiles. As I tighten my grip on the wrinkled paper in my hand, my father begins to smile too. Later, I escape outside and stoop to collect violets and put them in the white wicker of my bicycle basket. I carefully pick each one at its base and kiss its delicate head before bundling them with bits of string or paper clips. I ride for long hours up and down Ellen Street, leaving small gifts of freshly picked dandelions and violets in my neighbors' mailboxes. I ride my bike until my Achilles ache and the sun drips down the sky, leaving a wash of watercolors. Red skies at night, sailors delight. Red skies in the morning, sailors take warning, I pronounce to the sky. At dusk, I go into the open field on our street and lie down in the tall grass and listen to the crickets sing until the streetlights come on. Most days I run home so as not to be late, but some days I lie for a few extra moments and allow myself to fade into the backdrop of night, to be lost, invisible, and yet part of something larger. Soon I hear my mother's call summoning me back to our house, the one with the peeling paint and the secrets. Returning to my bike, I find the dry carcasses of violets wilted into the cracks of my white wicker bicycle basket. Thank you. All right, so this is a poem from God's Spine, and it's going to dialogue with that poem a little bit. It's called I Am the Type to Talk with My Hands. The first piece is like a prose poem, and this is in that style as well. I am the type to talk with my hands. In 1975, my father sits on the fraying brown couch, counting out dimes on the table in front of him. Sometimes I wake in the middle of the night and I wonder whose house I am in. From across the street, a black girl with a red bandana says to my only friend, "Why are you playing with that white girl?" In 1976, stacks of magazines collect on our porch. My mother promises they will be worth something someday. In 1979, a neighbor tells me all ladies have fine, delicate collarbones and wrists. I have a crush on the Jamaican boy across the street, and my father slaps me. He says it was a mistake moving into this Black neighborhood. Often at school, I can see myself from above, and my body feels like a country I am visiting. In 1981, I cut my inner thighs with a razor, and the red blood streams down like a billowing bandana. Hundreds of pieces of cut magazines litter the floor of my bedroom as I collage the walls with pictures of models' collarbones and wrists. After I get my first period, my mother buys me a sanitary napkin. Tampons, she says, are for people who've already had sex. In 1978, I do as I'm told, and I save all my coins in a bank for college. Blood rushes down my leg in math class, and a boy points at me like I'm a disease. In college, I learned that race is a social construction, and those words replay over an image of my father shouting the N-word at our neighbors. After my father enters my room at night to touch the insides of my thighs, he leaves a shiny dime to remind me he was there. When I look at my mother, her face is a rearview mirror, and I can only see what is behind me. I am the only person in my family to go to college. I am 10 when my father tells me men want a whore in bed and a lady all the other times. I am holding my first boyfriend's hand. 2 boys throw a bottle at us and yell, "Jungle fever." He immediately lets go, says, "No white girl is going to get me killed." I eat less and less food in order to feel more and more of my bones. When I am 11, my aunt gives me a lacy teddy. She says, "You may as well dress like a whore if you're going to act like one." In 1979, the only safe place left is a small card table across the street, eating Jamaican food with Mr. and Mrs. Christie. My house is filled with useless items my mother is desperate to find a use for. A girl in school says, "You can't trust someone who talks with their hands."
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you to Kathleen Donnelly for inviting Terri and I to read today, and for Daniel setting everything up and promoting the event. I'm going to start with a satirical piece about what we choose to discipline in our schools, in our country, and what we choose not to. As a teacher, I'm supposed to enforce certain aspects of a code of conduct that I don't always want to enforce. Code of conduct. Rejoice, fellow citizens. Ball caps, do-rags, and earbuds, the unholy trinity of chaos, will no longer bring anarchy and doom to our classrooms. No empty fridge or broken boiler impacts a child's ability to attend like the bent bill of a Lakers cap. No father deported under midnight cover steals student focus like black spandex over half braids. No dearth of brown teachers interferes more with education than a baseline sewing a heart-spliced threads together. Amen, code of conduct, to your lanyard tyranny, your yellow-tagged earlobes and spaghetti strap subterfuge. Everyone knows a girl's bare shoulders are more dangerous than the truth she bears. I noticed you left out plagiarism. Smart move. Our kids are stressed and need a break between lax practice and cocktail hour. We understand, after all, our parents and our parents' parents and our parents' 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 bootstraps were all stolen, even the boots. And what a name, code. I mean, isn't all of this? Law and order, how we turn the sad and hurting into delinquents, the determined into ornaments, survivors into pariahs. We need security guards, not social workers, suspensions, not support, convictions over conviction, the principle over principle. Oh, code of conduct, you magician, filling our schools with Reconstruction paper, making the haters eat Jim Crow, making it OKKK to put America first. You turn detentions into detention centers, license holders into license plate makers because prison is like the good old days. Dearest code, you have always been there to forbid black living and permit white crime. Do your thing. Write up the black girls with head coverings and praise the white boys smart enough to claim others' work as their own. And who will challenge you? The Board of Education doesn't live where the kids with ball caps, do-rags, and earbuds do. Blocks redlined and cruised already by a self-made God, searching for angels to capture. Thank you very much. The pandemic has given us a lot of time to think about viruses, whether it's American racism or COVID-19. So this piece kind of speaks to both of those. The virus. A pride of lions sprawls across a South African road built on tribal land, their paws spilling over a yellow divide, what colonizers called civilization. The big cats bask on cement's unnatural coolness, cutting through a quiet reserve, a continent removed from jellyfish pumping in pink tutus through Venetian canals, leatherbacks reclaiming shoreline, forests mocking chainsaws, and whales breaching water so much death thought it had won. Earth's lungs billow with humanity's absence. Though on another road, built also on tribal land, a man is pinned beneath an officer's knee, neck to cement. He calls out for his mother until his lungs empty, taken by a virus no pandemic can best, created by colonizers in centuries past and to which their descendants remain immune, while choking life from a million brown mouths, the planet, truth itself, all pinned beneath civilization's wicked knee.
Lordy, I don't want to go after that. This is called Right to Save Someone. Say something about the blade, the shine under the opalescent moon, how when you moved it like a pendulum in your fingers, it caught fire, sent a pearl of light to dance on the ceiling above you. Say something about how it mesmerized you for a second and made you forget your plan. Say something about having a plan. Say something about how you cried and felt nothing, your breath, how it stilled in your throat, how you breathed like a master yogi. Say something about irony. Talk about the razor between your two still fingers, held like a lover's eyelash to blow away for a wish. Say how you took it at first and moved it above your wrist, sawing the air for practice. Say how you let it kiss your skin, how you let it whisper a salted ocean breeze, how you began the dance of trajectory through a vein you didn't know had so much ocean inside. Tell how you began a creator to birth the wet, sticky foal that is your heart. I have a lot of poems about my dad that are not good. And I felt like there was...
The poems are good.
Well, the poems are good, but he's not in them. I hope the poems are good. But this is a poem about maybe one of the things that my dad gave me that was good. It's called Inheritance. When my mind is a clear, precise thing, I remember my father. Standing at the stove, flipping buttermilk pancakes, steaming 5 pounds of clams while melting butter, how they slid from the mesh bag into the pot like throated chimes. This smile, the one without sharpened teeth, without I need to take things from you. Nothing more than I love you was lips, teeth, gums with soft edges, and it felt, yes, dare I write this, safe. Only when he cooked, his body melting over some heat, strips of brown and yellow everywhere, grease and herbs, and cooking has always been my favorite love language. He'd stare at me as if to say, take this for the dark passage I will send you on.
We have a lot of beautiful spaces on Long Island. I think it's important to remember the history before they became what they were. This is called Arboretum. Bending through wisteria, gravel soled and wind blushed, my paternal frame and 2 boys the fulcrum of pastoral portraits. No neck swiveled, no lip whispered, Do you see that white father with his kids? Who knew they were so fond of nature? The sycamore, gum, and sassafras all get what they need here from soil, sunlight, and undocumented help. This sculpted riverside plot the Secretog staked for millennia, sold in 1683 to a white man. A website says it is unclear what became of the Secretog afterwards. Privilege is an arboretum tree, rooted in ground bought and bequeathed, upstream from the forsaken marsh mouth of sunk plastic and rotting stumps no one communes with, walking on a Tuesday, robed in cotton, and whispering whenever there are changes in the shade. And here's a little conversation from the point of view of Mexico, which we've had the good fortune to visit 3 times. What Mexico said to the US. Here, days are Quetzal gemstone, flamingo, or photon sonata of soil, and all the avocado trees mutter peace, and coffee nubs spiral into blue pails under low cumulus, spading weeds between zócalos y piramides, where we replant the human heart. To you, we are cartel peligroso and uncivilized. To us, you are impoverished, sneering at our drum-blown chili dust growl, our smoke burn, our Guadalupe fiestas de oraciones y buñuelos. Your marble museums omit us, but not your Taco Tuesday Cinco de Tequila cash flow. We learned centuries ago to run from your death tick, like Choc's lightning axe through Mayan air. We look up, wonder when you'll take more of our sky, how you took Arizona, Utah, Nevada, California, Texas, and New Mexico, crossing every border we owned. In your country, airbrushed breasts stagger and tempt, coiffed ladies lament expired coupons and shop elsewhere. Once black-haired señoras appear in market aisles calling vámonos. In your country, wealth is sainthood, poverty sin, the rightness of whiteness branding flesh with all the wrong stories. A land where every week children are shot and no one does a thing.
Ooh, you got me with that one, Pasca. Ah, Lord. So I'm a social worker, and I get to sit in spaces and hold space for people's trauma and their pain, and it's an honor to do it, and it involves a lot of listening. So this is a poem called "The One Who Listens Can't Speak." Person after person, I sit, one eye focused on the snow. It is 1 a.m. It is Saturday afternoon. I am working. I am eating a sardine sandwich. I am making love to my husband. I am crying softly into the pillow of my fears. They still come, open the ocean of their mouths, rush and plunge of need. One calls me to coax the fragile wafer of her silent tongue, stares with tiny straw eyes and says, "I'm going to finally tell you." Before she spoke, I knew gums would bleed. It is work to chew words. I was the oldest born to scaffold armies of twisting bones. Some days I pass my reflection, hunt for my body, a root cellar, fecund and wilting. And, what's next? Yep, okay. So we're gonna move to some more spiritually things, because God's spine is ultimately trying to create a spiritual chiropractic away from trauma and towards some kind of beauty and light and connection. So this is called Guides. Help us cross midnight hours of sandpaper and stone, our sky packed with loved ones. We remember them. We are misplaced, tracing each other's bones with trembling hands, tribal dances, harpoon balance. Remember, help us through this dusty geometry. And another kind of spirituality is one that you share with love and sex and connection. And so this is called Pre-Creation God. In this bed, you lick at my deepest blue. Our moans hold the line of truth. Tongue traces the sea of my belly, dissolves into curves of pleading, salted pinky inside my cheek, breath against ears like curtains drawn against the scattered gaze of the world. It isn't an exaggeration to say, before you, I had dissolved and disbanded. I was improbably nostalgic for a cheerless past. This love-making plants endless rows of seedlings. They grow, a thick-walled labyrinth I enter. Take it away. Take it to the end, Mr. Pasca.
In keeping with the theme of divinity and spirituality, this is a song of Morrison. That's the title, Song of Morrison. I don't believe in anthropomorphizing divinity, but if I did, my God would look and talk like Tony. Her tongue studded with rubies, locks salting space with nanoscopic imperfections, eyes plotting ocean floor. And if the law of atomic attraction weren't God enough, how mica dutifully becomes and remains mica. Tony's walk would arrange moraines in Banff and karsts in Ha Long Bay. And if a D chord or poem or pirouette or Stevie harmonica riff weren't evidence enough of the inexplicable's presence here on earth, her smile over morning's uncupped hands would be, revealing all the steeples and towers we have built above our sad, selfish slaughter of the truth. I think spirituality is really important to help keep us in balance and keep us clear, but it can also be used as a crutch not to do anything about the injustice we see. And so this is kind of a conversation in my mind with some peaceniks I know who really don't believe in getting involved at all in anything other than their own peace, which is important. But anyway, dear doves, peace is mostly messy. Knives don't come out clean. Guilt has no thumbs, no mortar or screws. Between the switch and illumined bulb is deed. Myriad Teslan failure, red-eyed filament sweat. Sit in the noise, chaos, sit-ins are scary acts. Comfort's complicit, what is it you once meant to do but euthanized like an old cat? Undraw love's curtain. Smell the smoke on your Woodstock wings, under the Bodhi tree, between yogis at the edge of town, prayers coiling from incense. The flood still rocks our ark of hurts, bound for Ararat, while you chant and misquote revolutionaries, entranced by an olive branch and poster of the rain. And so we're at 23 minutes, Daniel. So we'll push it back onto you, and we'll wait till later to finish with a poem each.
Thank you guys. Great job. Great job. Okay, so we're going to move now to the open read. So I'm going to share my screen for a moment. And there's always a risk when you do this. But here goes. And my graphic is kind of stolen from the Super Bowl poetry read. So you'll recognize the official there. So here are the ground rules. So please enter your name in chat if you haven't done so already, if you'd like to read. And the order that I'm going to go in, I see so far that Linda was first, and Emerson, we're going to have actually a voice of a child today, Emerson will be reading, and then Mike, and then Kathy, and then Ashley, and then Jack, and then Dan. So please be prepared to be called upon in that order. And once we get through that list, if there's any other names that show up in chat, we'll call upon them as well. Okay. And at the very end, we'll stop just in case we possibly miss somebody. So please, one poem, and there is a kind of a 5-minute maximum here, so everyone has a chance to read. Barbara will come in at the end, and if we have time, which I think we probably will, we'll ask Terry and Matt to come back for an encore. So the first one that we have scheduled, Linda, if you could come off mute, please.
I think you just took me off mute.
I'm very
Can
powerful.
you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I know. Thank you, Matt and Terri. It was very enlightening to hear your work, very enlightening. And I really appreciate that you shared your hearts the way that you did. My poem is called Inside, Outside. Inside, productivity is high, engaged in electronic group study, writing in class, out of class, writing, 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 purposefully purging, piling, organizing the work, establishing new routines, letting go of old hurts, fresh wounds. Outside, exploring old neighborhoods in new ways, engaging in conversation, new neighbors, old neighbors, purposefully pacing, practicing, increasing my steps, walking, 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 establishing new routines, endorphin production up, walking out my salvation in fear and trembling in the joy of the Lord, wounded no more. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. That was great.
You're welcome.
Okay, now Ashley, I think I've got you under Emerson. So Ashley, if you want to come off mic and have Emerson read.
Okay, here's Emerson's gonna read.
Speak
louder.
This poem is called How Much Longer? I wrote it during online school. How much longer until I can play with my friends? How much longer until I can play on the playground? How much longer until I can sit on the wobble stool? How much longer until coronavirus ends?
Can I tell them what a wobble stool is?
Right. A wobble stool is a special chair in school that strengthens your core muscles.
Thank you, Ebby. That was great. Okay. So next up, we have Mike.
Am I on yet? You're muted, but
There you go, Mike. Go ahead.
okay, if you can hear me. Hard acts to follow, especially for a poet that doesn't write in deep, thoughtful poems. I'm a rhythm and rhyme poet that likes to lighten the mood when we're in a poetry read. And I've got one just to hopefully lighten the mood. It's called Questions. I've got some questions. The truth, if you please. I'd like to know. Does a penguin have knees? Can a rhinoceros, if he has a twitch, raise his back leg to get at his itch? If water gets in a bull elephant's ear, can he hop on one leg until it is clear? A better one yet, can he smother a sneeze by holding his trunk between his front knees? Is a zebra a white horse with black stripes on the side or a black horse with white stripes? How can we decide? Can a wolf really blow, or is that just a tail? Can a golf ball plug up the blowhole of a whale? How does a roadrunner run? Can't he fly? And why does Wile E. Coyote continuously try? What made the first hyena laugh? It must have been one big hilarious gaff. And how does a rooster know just when to crow, or how does a hummingbird know where to go? How does a possum think he will survive by making us all think that he's not alive? And how can a male mantis get into the act, knowing when finished he will be attacked? And why does a poet write things down their way? And why did you come out to hear us today? These are some questions. Please give them some thought. I'd hate to believe they were all asked for naught. Thank you.
Great. It's great.
Okay, so now we're going to go to Kathy Donnelly. Kathy, you want to come off mute, please?
Hi. So, first of all, I'd like to say, Matt and Terri, that was a fantastic read. Thank you so, so much. They're very touching. You know, I'm never going to have memories of pennies or dimes without thinking of your poem, Terri. Dan, thank you for hosting, and Barbara, fantastic. Glad you're at the helm. So I couldn't help but write a poem. Actually, Tammy Nuzzo's asking for poems about the pandemic, so I sat down and wrote one, and I think it's appropriate to read it here, especially with the little girl asking when all of this is coming to an end. I think we'd all like to know when that's happening, and the answer is we don't know. So this is a poem I wrote called In the Pandemic, 2020. And it's directed to the people who don't wear masks and don't cooperate, think it's all a hoax. It's positive, your report says. Q-tip probe up your right, then left nostril, waiting for days to find out the result, counting on it being negative. You have the coronavirus, COVID-19. Who passed on this virus to you, and who did you pass it on to? You wish you knew. You've been so many places, contacted so many people, at work, at home, on the way from one to the other. You spent time in the local pub, marched arm in arm for Black Lives Matter with your white friends for your black friends. You listened to the president like him, didn't don and doff a face mask, social distance, pay much attention to washing your hands in public places. You voted for Trump once, plan to do it again, and don't understand why he and Dr. Fauci don't agree. Mask, distance, hand washing. Is that all it would have taken for a better result? No mandates from the top, you feel betrayed. You have a decent paying job, what will they do with you? Work from home, sick pay, leave of absence, let you go? How many colleagues are in the same predicament? Will the company close, leave hundreds of coworkers looking for the same job? You have rent due, utilities to cover, school loans to pay off. You were doing so well. Does all momentum fade or disappear? But of all your responsibility, there's you. How will this foreign invader treat its host? You know someone who tested positive and remains asymptomatic. Oh shoot. You know several friends of friends that died. You have no comorbidities, hypertension, obesity, diabetes, kidney disease, coronary artery disease, heart failure, or cardiomyopathies, no COPD. In fact, never smoked or vaped. A little pot in high school, but that was long ago. You kept your nose to the grind, worked hard in college for good grades. Now do all that is asked of you on the job and more. It doesn't seem fair. What is a pandemic anyway? If your dad had it, contact tracing, he has all the comorbidities, still working in his latter 50s, not ready to retire, remortgage the house to help you launch. Your buddies have wives, young children, everyone carries debt. You call your doctor who only sees his patients online. I'm positive, you say. He makes his recommendations. Stay home, rest, isolate, plenty of good food, hydrate. If you begin to have trouble breathing, go to the hospital. You ask, will I need a ventilator? Will I have a stroke? Will I have lasting effects? Will I be immune after this? How long will I be sick? How long will I be contagious? What medicines do you treat this with? He responds honestly, nobody knows. We need the vaccine. Stay home, put your things in order just in case, and try not to tax your immune system with too much stress.
Thank you, Kathy. Very timely, very moving. Okay, and Ashley, I think we're back to you now. I think you had your name on the list.
Actually, that was Emerson using my account to get herself on the list. So
Okay.
I'm not reading today.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, thank you, Ash. Okay, so Jack, if you want to come off mute, I believe you're next.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Terry and Matt, for the wonderful reading. The piece I'm going to read is entitled Prayers of the Feet. The breath is constricted. The soul stirs like a disoriented compass needle seeking north. A light shines dim through the clouds of forgetting. When walking in strange lands, there are times that call for one step in front of another. There are times that call for prayers of the feet. Walking through dense clouds with steadiness, with a readiness to seek the other side. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. That was great. Okay. So Pramila, I see that your niece would like to read. I don't know if that's today or that's for a future reading, but if it's for today, you're welcome.
She's
to
right.
come on.
She's right here. She'd like to read.
That'd be great.
You have to unmute.
Okay. Pramila, I can hear you. Is she with you or is she on a different line?
She's in a different line. Her name appears on the screen.
And what's her name again?
Bijoya.
Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay, Bijoya, welcome. So I've unmuted you, so you have the floor.
My poem is called Upset. I am frustrated so bad when no one picks up their phone. As frustrated as an elephant who got tangled up in chains. My upset nerves run up to my mouth. I run up to my room and whisper the F word to the mirror and cool down.
That was great. Thank you so much. And please feel free to read it with us anytime. Great. Okay. All right. I think the next reader that we have is Dan Kerr. So I'm going to read a poem. And those of you, I know a number of you on the line come to our virtual services. And on those virtual services, you may hear me reference the Big Chicken. And the Big Chicken is my brother in North Carolina. And this one was just selected to be in the Bard's Annual for 2020. So I figured, hey, why don't I read that one today? So this poem is called The Big Chicken. And here it goes. You'll see why it's become obvious why I call him the Big Chicken about halfway through the poem. If I were 3 inches taller, had a bigger smile, and spoke with a southern accent, I would be my big brother Charlie. If my moral compass was always true, if I forgave more easily and spent more time helping broken human beings, I would be my brother Charlie. If I burned the woods down when I was a little kid, tried to put out the fire myself, then went to the police station to report what I had done, I would be my brother Charlie. If I was a star football player in high school, winning every game when I was a junior and losing every game when I was a senior, I would be my brother Charlie. If I stopped the other junior high kids from bullying the gay kid in the 1960s, shared a room with the first Black football player at the Citadel in the 1970s, and today own the only Chick-fil-A in North Carolina that composes its waste, I would be my brother Charlie. If I was a better Christian, studied the Bible regularly, and volunteered to sit in for caregivers so they could get a break, I would be my brother Charlie. If I was a Boy Scout leader most of my life, guided countless Eagle Scouts in their projects, and took scouts camping when I was in my 70s and had 2 bum knees, I would be my brother Charlie. If I read more books, took more walks on the beach, and prayed more often, I would be my brother Charlie. If I was always the last one off the plane because I helped the old ladies with their bags and the young mothers with their babies, and made sure to thank the pilot and the crew before deplaning, I would be my brother Charlie. If I provided a better example of a life well led and spread goodwill and humor with everybody I met, I would be my brother Charlie. If I listened more, spoke less, and took myself less seriously, I would be my brother Charlie. If I grew up in Alabama in the 1930s, and a Black man was falsely accused of raping a white woman, and I had the courage and character of Atticus Finch to defend him, I would be my brother Charlie. Thank you. Okay, I think that is everyone. Let me check in chat. If there are any other names that want to be on the list, want to read, just put your name in chat. And I don't see anyone else. So if you, at this point, if you have something to read, just go. Oh, Pramila, yes, please.
Thank you very much, Terry and Matt. I just totally enjoyed your reading. Survivors don't put up a wall. Daily, the wall comes down, and you stand with women and men vulnerable. What is there to hide? The pain has written itself out. It has become bold and stout. that can be pushed and prodded. It is now larger than them, a continent with mountains, craters, lakes, oases. What is there to hide? You don't need to put on your face. You can be as you are, like getting up from bed or climbing out of your tub, closing your umbrella, shaking your hair of rain. You can be yourself, as in an open field with no one around you. Even the birds fly free, leaving the sky clear. Oh, see. Oh, what is there to hide? Survivors around you have stories they'll tell unprompted, and you will listen, for there is no wall stopping you from listening. There is nothing to stop you. There is nothing to stop you. Thank you.
Okay, before we bring back Terri and Matt for an encore, is there anyone else who would like to read? Just come off mic and start reading if you did. Okay, I don't hear anybody. So, okay, so why don't we bring back Terri and Matt for an encore? So Matt, if you...
Okay. Hi, well, thank you, everyone. It was wonderful to hear you all. Thank you for all being here. And, you know, this isn't the same as sharing communal spaces, but it's what we have. And I'm very grateful to this online community during this crazy, unprecedented time. So thank you for that. We're going to end with 2 love poems because we love each other. And they're odd love poems because they're about imagining each other's death. But, you know, we're odd people, so we're going to do that. This is a poem called I Admit That While You're Gone. From the house or sleeping, I picture you dead. Pull clean from the seam of our linen lives of moons and tulip into the tender groves of a distant, greedy night. Each time you disappear into the most unreachable stillness I can imagine. My heart, a bug-eyed chimney of belching smoke, lurches along the violent seas of 5 o'clock rush hour. Without you, souls wail. A tempest of arms strangles necks inside the yellow geography of our shifting metric. Love, your voice, so urgent, seizes me. The melody of your strange fingers. The clock strikes 11. My spine twitches. A finch, released from a branch of snow. Your head in my hands, the sleeping of the waiting world. There can be nothing but this. It's all you, Pasca.
All right. This is a new piece. It's called The Library of Alexandria. When you and I die, not even our children will have access to the infinite terabytes of our love, stored in the cloud our vanishing left behind. Raconteurs will fall silent at our incalculability, the way astronomers say there are more stars than sand as they chart space's fleeting anatomy. One block south of the Mediterranean, Naveen showed us the new library, Alexander's bust, an impossible swoop of steel, 120 scripts etched into Aswan granite, the planetarium built into its roof. Talk turned, though, to history. What was lost when Caesar torched humanity's hard drive? So much learning left to smolder by the harbor, a trillion stars no dish could detect. Naveen said the fire wasn't as bad as what went with it. Soon South Pacific nations will be reclaimed by the waves, and you and I will be gone. This poem and all my paltry volumes pay ill tribute to our galaxy. The clematis blooming by your ear, cardinals sipping at the bath, your shirt pouch filled with snap peas, and voice snapping now as our boys try to bell kick. Are we only real when seen, like blue giants or orchid slippers? Are we carried inside one another like injured birds? Naveen said the Library of Alexandria was originally a temple, which I think is fitting if you and I and this and all we have shared, like anything holy, cannot be named.
Wow.
Okay, Before I turn it over to Barbara, I'm just looking down the list, and I say to Bree and to Chris and to Patricia and to Rachel and to Robert Savino and to Sharon Doyle, if you want to read, just come off mic. If not, I'm going to turn it over to Barbara. Okay. Okay, so Barbara, I'm going to call upon you. Barbara, I'll put a slide up for you to help you with your closing remarks, and I'll take it down when you instruct me to.
No, I'm fine. I got it.
Okay, Barbara, over to you.
Okay, I don't want that, Dan.
Okay.
I've got it. Okay. Well, right now I'm floating in beautiful, wonderful, moving language. It's a wonderful way to spend the weekend and to get through the weekend, to have this Saturday morning. Thank you so much, Matt and Terri. Just beautiful poetry. And thank you, all of you wonderful poets. And thank you for the children who read their poetry. That adds another dimension. I do want to ask you, I don't want to be the only poet that's going to do this walkathon or runathon that Dan is talking about. So please, if you're a poet, walk with me for this fundraiser so that people like Gladys can get up. And when we finally get to meet in person, they can get up and up stairs and that sort of thing. Our next week, we have a special treat because it's Jack Houlihan, September 12th. That's going to be a very, very wonderful. He's a professor of medicine and former director of the Center for Medical Humanities, Compassionate Care, and Bioethics at Stony Brook University. He's the author of 7 collections of poetry, and he has many other books. I will read a complete bio of his when I introduce him in September. So please come back in September. And it was wonderful seeing all of you.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, I'm going to stop recording here, but I'm going to leave the room open. So let me wait till I stop recording.